This is how I brainwashed myself to love life again. I had everything I thought I was supposed to want. The career, the house. One night at the beach, 2 a.m, water up to here, pondering whether it was all worth it, whether I wanted to keep going. That's when I realised something. My brain had been programmed since childhood to perform and to earn love through achievement, and it was tearing me apart piece by piece. So I had to reprogram it. Most people think loving life is about changing what's around them, the next big thing. Better circumstances, better relationships, more success. But here's what I learned. Your external world will never, ever, ever rise above your internal story. You have to rewire the operating system first. And that's exactly what I did. Today, I'm going to walk you through the exact framework I used to go from that night at the beach, ready to give up, to waking up every day with genuine peace. This isn't theory. This is what saved my life. And if you stay till the end, I'll show you how to apply it to yours. Let's dive in. Success for me looked like achievement. It looked like winning on the sporting field. It looked like being the biggest swinging dick in the room in business. It looked like money. It looked like places. It looked like experiences. I learnt this from a pretty young age. I remember with my mum, who craved love, that every time I looked after her, every note that I wrote her, she'd feel fantastic, she'd feel loved, and what she would do is then give me love back. And then I learned it from my dad. Every time I kicked a bag, every time I made 100, Dad was there smiling, happy, telling me how well I'd done. But when I didn't perform, he was the first one there to tell me I didn't do so well. So what I learned was that I was in relationship as much as everybody else was with my own performance and not with me. So at 16 years of age, when I'd learnt that, all I wanted to do was achieve. The irony was, on the flip side of not achieving it, was how could I hide my disappointment? How could I hide the fact that I never played AFL footy? I never played district cricket. I never finished my degree. Well, the way that showed up was finding a way to mask it. So I masked it with drinking. I masked it with partying. I was the funniest bloke in the room. I was the biggest drinker in the room. I was the bloke that would do everything he could to seek validation from everybody else. And the whole time, I was just losing a little bit of myself every day. And what happens when a man is seeking feeling better than in order to feel good about himself is that invariably on the other side, he's feeling less than. And what we end up in is this cycle of better than, less than, better than, less down. One up, one down, one up, one down. And when we feel one up, one down, there's no peace. There's no living in full respect. And that's what I learned the hard way. So that night, this deep in the water, I was ready to end it. My business was on the brink of collapse. I'd just been through a terribly toxic relationship. I'd given up any hope of having a family. I was at a really low point in my life where I felt like there was nothing left for me. My friendships felt conditional. I felt like I was letting my family down. Never felt like I was doing enough for everybody else. And all that led to was me doing even less for myself. So at that point, with every fibre of my body, I was ready to swim and swim until I couldn't swim anymore. And I can still feel myself leaning forward. And the only thing that stopped me was the unconditional love that I had from my parents and the unconditional love of my dog. And with those two things, I decided this was my line in the sand moment. This wasn't going to happen anymore. I was lucky enough to be exposed to some great people, great speakers, great learning through all the success that I had, but I hadn't celebrated. And I knew there was an opportunity for me to be able to reprogram myself. And that's when it all began. So that night, that was when I decided, hey, I can't do this on my own either. So I reached out and I asked for some help. When I reached out and asked for some help, I realised that everything I was seeking externally, I'd completely forgotten that the most important thing to me was connection. I was craving connection of a family, craving connection of real authentic love, and craving connection internally and understanding who I was. So when I got that help and I actually got a little bit clearer on exactly what it was I wanted, little things started to happen for me. Within 3 months, I met my wife, and that was all because I was prepared to let go. The next thing that happened was I found a mentor, and that mentor introduced me to the concept of meditation. I'd meditated before, but I'd never really taken it seriously. Like everything else, I'm shit at this. I'm not the best. I'm not the Dalai fucking Lama. So therefore, what was the point? But what I learned from working with David was when we slow down, we learn to shine a floodlight on life, and we can see more. And the more we see, the more we hear, the more we feel. And suddenly, a new world began to open up to me. I wasn't broken, I was wired for survival. And I knew I had to change that wiring, and this was another step. Small steps, but all repetition that creates lifelong change. So that was just the start of the journey. But from that beach to meeting David to where I am now, that allowed me to create a framework that's completely revolutionised my life, and it's changed the lives of hundreds of men. So the first thing I needed to understand was that I didn't need to seek my self-esteem from performance. What I really needed to do was understand that I needed to show myself. I always thought I was great at showing others compassion, but all I would do is do something for someone else in the vain hope they'd say thank you. What I realised was compassion starts with me. When I show myself compassion, it means I'm able to show others compassion. And that was the start of the process. And that's what allowed us to create a system that allows us to find that. Because that sounds great, but there's also the question of how the hell do I do this? So through a shitload of work and a lot of trial and error and a lot of learning, what we've come up with is a system that is really easy to follow. And pretty much, if you follow the bouncing ball, your life changes. So what's that look like? As mentioned, the first step in the process is we need to learn to be. We're bloody good at doing. Performance is all about doing. But when we sort the being out, we become capable of doing so much more. So what does be look like? Well, be looks like meditation. It looks like slowing down. It looks like you observing, hearing the birds, seeing the waves, feeling the wind on your face, noticing the hair on your arm. And that's a practice. When you practice being and slowing down, you see more, you hear more, you feel more. Once you do that, it gives you the framework to then observe what it is you tell yourself. We have 60 to 90,000 thoughts a day, and they go through a filter called the reticular activation system. And that reticular activation system pretty much filters our thoughts into 3 to 5,000. And that, my friends, is where change starts to happen. Because those words and those images that come into our brain, they pretty much drive our emotion. So how do we change that? The first thing we have to do is observe. What are the words? What are the images that are driving your life right now? And if you think you can't change them, pretty simple theory. The old red car theory, you've probably heard it before. How many red cars did you see yesterday? If I told you I'm going to give you $50 for every red car you see today, how many would you see? See, that's the power of the mind. You can affect what you think. You can affect what you observe. So the whole point here is we need to become the masters of our own thinking. So we need to rewire our thinking. We need to change the words and the images so that we go from reacting to response, and in turn, we then lean into new emotion. So by choosing our words and our images, we control how we feel. So the next part is we have to become the author of our own story. A lot of those thoughts that are on repeat, they come from programming. From 2 to 7 years of age, guys, what's the number one question kids will ask you? It's why. That's because their brain's in alpha state. So we tell them, whatever it is we tell them. We tell them about Santa, we tell them about the Tooth Fairy, we tell them about the Easter Bunny, whatever it is. And they believe us because their brain's in alpha state. So if that happened to them, what happened to us? Our programming came from those days. So our unconscious programming was determined for us by the way that we were raised. What happened then was suddenly when we get to about 7, we're no longer kept safe anymore. And that's when we have to move out into the world. And we understand that from 7 to 21 or 22, we're not kept safe anymore. And we actually have to make our own stories to keep ourselves safe. We have to cross the road by ourselves. After being told for 7 years, don't run across the road. And what that means is we build up an armour from 7 to 21 or 22 to keep ourselves safe. And those stories we mistake for fact. And by the time we're 24 or 25, we'll tell everybody that's just the way we are. And until we make a conscious decision to change, that remains our story. But the key to this is understanding that that story is not true. It's just an acceptance that something's true, generally in the absence of fact. And we can rewrite those stories. And that was the third phase, was to recognise I can choose the stories I write for myself. Stories about me, stories about the world, stories about other people. And even better, I can go in and I can heal myself. I can understand that the stories I told myself about maybe those things that were really tough for us when we were young, how they actually forged and created something really powerful within us, and reframe those stories so we can take them moving forward. The fourth step in the process is dream. Now, dreaming is not about just throwing some wishes out there. This is about authentically understanding that I will get whatever vibration I put out. We've all heard of the law of attraction. It's a real thing. If I put out energy to the universe, guess what I get back? When I put out great energy and I'm vibing high and I go into that venue and everything's pumping and I'm in there and I'm contributing to that, I feel amazing. So what we learned about dreaming is that we get to design our own life, but we actually have to live it day by day. We have to live the process. We have to live the feeling. We have to put a system in place that allows us to show up with the energy we want to receive back. And when you learn that, it's amazing how easy it is for the universe to deliver to you what it is you're looking for. Most of us spend our entire life worrying about how we're going to do something. And you know what the problem with how is? If we don't know we can get there, half the time we stop. Half the time we don't even bother. We don't even start. So everything we just shared with you are the 4 components of learning how to be rather than do. When you learn how to be, your capacity to do goes through the roof. And what starts to come to you are the things that authentically light you up. And you start to live that true north of yours. So what does this look like for you? Well, what it looks like is committing 20 minutes a day to some simple practices that allow you to learn how to be and slow down, that allow you to choose and regulate how you think, that give you the opportunity to rewrite the stories so they align with the person you're becoming, and they allow you to dream and feel what it feels like to be that person that already has everything that you really want so that life comes to you. So when I commit to my 20-minute process, what that looks like is I show up with energy for my family. I go to work crystal clear on what it is I'm aiming to achieve for the day, but without the necessity to drive myself on outcomes. It means that I show up for my mates when they need me, and it means I look after me in a way that I've never looked after me before, so that what I do is authentic and driven by the person that I am, not the person I feel like I should be. So I went from being up to here in the water, ready to spending time on the beach with the people I love, completely present, completely connected, and living a life that I dreamed of when I was 5, when I was 6, when I was 7, when I let myself be real. So what would I tell my 20-year-old self? If I had my time again, I think he was pretty close. But what he didn't do was commit to growth. What he didn't do was to commit to the discipline of growth. See, talking about the thing isn't doing the thing. Thinking about the thing isn't doing the thing. It's all about system and committing to a system and committing to growth. When you commit to learning about you, when you commit to growth and choosing your direction, when you commit to dropping contempt for yourself and for other people, 20-year-old me would have been able to pursue whatever it was he wanted to, fearlessly, looking at life with a limitless attitude and ready to overcome any fear, and given permission to 100% not measure himself on his performance, but to measure himself on effort and who he is. If this story hit home, maybe it's time to stop doing it all on your own. I work with men who built the life they thought they wanted, but still feel stuck. If that's you, there's a link below in the description. Go ahead and click that link to learn how we can work together.